And now for the major announcements.
Da 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 da.
Oh, Marcus, for years, listeners have been urging with us, pleading with us, begging us to run Wellness to Couch events in their own hometown and not just in Melbourne.
Well, get ready, folks, because in 2018, there's not one, not two, but 3 major events coming your way.
The Wellness Basecamp is our brand new one-day event featuring your favourite Wellness Couch podcasters in your very own home state.
In 2018, we are coming to Brisbane, Adelaide and Kiama, just south of Sydney, for one inspirational day of health and wellness.
Oh, incredible lineups to MP. We've got the Up for Chatters, we've got Joe Witten, we've got Fuad, we've got Cale Brock, Audra Starkey, the incredible Marcus Pearce,
Brett Hill, and so many more. Now, seats are strictly limited to these events. The Wellness Basecamp is not a big wellness summit 1,000 people job, so do not muck around.
No, you got to get in quick, MP. The early bird 2-for-1 tickets are now available.
Best Christmas present ever.
To book your tickets and for all the information, head to thewellnessbasecamp.com.
TheWellnessCouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, featuring your hosts Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And we're both so fucking tired.
We're just about to start this podcast and I was like, hang on a second, and I was like doing a yawn. How fitting.
How fitting. So before we jump into today's podcast, where we hope to really just share some trenches stories with you, and hopefully there's some wisdom in there for all of us.
Yeah.
We'd love to remind you to jump on to nourishingthemother.com.au and sign up to join our tribe, where you drop in your email, and once a week we'll send you a wrap up of everything that's been blogged and podcast and put out in the world by us. And you can pick and choose where you'd love to dive deeper. And then occasionally we'll send you a love letter, which is like a conversation or a toolkit that Bridget and I would have between ourselves that we know a gorgeous mama like you would want to know too. So please jump on to nourishingthemother.com.au and sign up to join our tribe.
So, tiredness and the motherhood journey.
Yeah.
It's kind of synonymous, isn't it?
Oh, I just think once you're a parent, you're just tired.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. And you just find a way to deal. Some days better than others.
I keep hearing actually I have this beautiful friend at school who I remember one of our other friends had a baby, 18 months ago. And I remember sitting in the parents' room with her having a coffee and, she's up several times a night and she's tired and blah, blah, blah. And she was saying, I've got this thing on and I want to go, but, I'm just so tired. And I remember my friend turning around and going, mate, you're tired anyway, so you might as well do what you love. And I
love that.
And I keep hearing her in my head because I get up and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired. And then I go, mate, you're tired anyway.
Yeah.
You might as well do what you love.
It's powerful, isn't it? Because the thing is, you either drag yourself through it or you find a way to show up.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, where do you want to start with this? So we kind of hashed out, is this too raw? Because there isn't perhaps the wisdom that we'd normally espouse or that we, we feel a responsibility to share. This is kind of it's tough and it's hard and we're both here and probably there with you, beautiful listener. And, we're still showing up and we're still here, and we just thought maybe there's wisdom just in that, rather than getting lost in a victim story or lost in shame or blame or relationship dysfunction or, and myriad of different ways we could take that pain. And that challenge is maybe just talking about how we're still here.
Yeah, because the place that I'm really sitting at around being tired is this part of me really being frustrated that for 15 months now I still haven't slept through the night. Like, I still haven't had a full night's sleep, and I remember getting to the point with my son where I was so ready and so done, and by this age he was sleeping through, and I've got this rub about why Sylvie's not doing that. Why am I spending an hour at 3 a.m. resettling her? Why am I up at 5 some days because she's awake? And finding that sweet spot between, the resentment, which is clearly a feedback for me to work out how to change something and really address the core issue at play between our dynamic that's clearly presenting this for us. And the wanting to blame, the wanting to kind of be angry about it. you know, and kind of get sucked into the story of just being tired because I've got a toddler who really doesn't want to sleep. You know, and tonight, like, I ended up bursting into tears and having to get my husband to take over because I'm so damn triggered by her not going to sleep. So, and I think that this is the ebb and flow, isn't it, that we find ourselves in, and that kind of, you know, pain that we talk about so often, that some days are brutal, some days are really fucking hard, and just, you know, getting through bedtime can be, you know, enough for you to see you just want to flake out on the couch and you know, hang for that time in the evening. And then sometimes not get it because one child needs your full attention because they've got all their big feelings coming out, and you're having to dig deep within yourself to find a way to show up to that, rather than, you know, the inner child in you just wanting to run the hell away and shut them down in order to escape. Like, it's a really, you know, motherhood calls us, parenthood calls us to find that place within ourselves of continuing to find ways to give and to be more and to show up more. But some days, man, like, you just don't want to, and it can take every ounce of your reserves to be there and to do that. What do you say?
Oh, look, I don't even know where to start. I feel like I've got 1,000 different, you know, tangents happening in my brain at the moment. And one is firstly just compassion, because I so get it, Bridge. Like, when I was hearing you speak more, probably before we started recording, I was like, yeah, God, I remember being there, you know, and that's a bloody hard place to be.
And I think also too, because as I shared before we started recording, it's just dealing with, like, the anger that was coming up in me, and knowing so deeply that this is not her. Like, this is, like, the seed's already within me. Like, you know, she's playing the role for me to face my own, like, buried emotions here, and face my own kind of devil on my shoulder around my own resistance to being called into what she's calling me into. But it can be so hard when we're so plugged in and we're tired and we have all these other things we're trying to get done to manage a household and manage a job or a career, or, you know, stay inspired in what fuels us as well. And then we have this resistance coming up in the form of our children that just take us to our edges, you know, and finding space to hold all of that sometimes can be so enormously taxing.
Yeah, it can be. But then I also wonder, do you have to hold it all?
Yeah, and I mean, that was the decision even tonight, like, leaving, and my husband really having, and she was like, she did not want to leave my arms, like, because she'd seen how angry I'd got, and then I had to go away because I was just crying, and I had to get Marcus to take over, and even, like, when I left, like, my heart is still sore, you know, I'm still feeling that in my body. But I've come to a place, even in my parenting, to know that she's getting something from him, you know, that I can't give, and that whatever was going on with us is going to come up again for us to work through. And so that is also true of finding that, do I have to hold it all? No, I don't. But there is still story and perhaps, you know, responsibility wrapped up in my high values around holding space that still wrestle with that sometimes, wrestle with that, being okay with not having to be me, you know?
Yeah, I do. I really get it.
Yeah.
Is it like that most nights? As in, what's actually happening?
No, it's actually not. It's not like that most nights, but it's just some nights, and I noticed myself quite quickly getting to that point of, like, just go the fuck to sleep. You know, why is it so hard? Just go to sleep. Come on.
So you've just had 2 nights of events, is that right?
I have.
So has she been in care for the last 2 nights?
So the first night, Mark's got to sleep in 2 minutes. Like, which I was also aware of, and, like, going, why me? And then, like, last night she was super easy for my parents, which I also can see, like, you know, both of my kids are melting down a lot today, you know, because that tends to be what happens when they've been around, you know, the carers who wouldn't perhaps hold the space that I hold. They're going to bring me all their stuff. So I also recognised that by the time bedtime rolled around tonight, like, I was pretty empty, you know, like, I sat with a lot of tears today. And you can't underestimate the importance, I think, of finding a way to find your own outlet for what needs to come out of you as a result of accepting all of what's coming out of them. And that's probably not something that I'm active enough in doing, you know, in really knowing who I can, like, you know, let out my verbal diarrhea too, you know, and let out my like ridiculous anger and frustration too. Like just like I hold all of that for my kids, or as much as I can for my kids. You know?
No, I do know. I'm just really sitting with it because it's bloody hard.
Yeah. And then there's that whole, you know, did I miss something, or, you know, what am I not seeing here? And I think because of the amount of introspection that you and I naturally do around ourselves and our kind of parenting dynamics, to not be able to get to that thing that you know is so elusive, like that you can see that your intuition's trying so hard to get you to see, also creates you know, some more frustration within myself around like, why am I not seeing what this is? Why is this still playing out for me?
So, you know, you've highlighted the fact that she goes to sleep easily for your parents and for your husband.
Sometimes it's not like, you know,
Not black and white. Okay.
Yeah, it's not black and white like that.
Okay. What do you think is different about the way or the dynamic? Well, let's just start with the practicality of the routine. What is different to what they do, or perhaps the congruence or expectations they have that are different to yours?
I think I probably have higher expectations of her just to go to sleep. And I think probably also feel like I've done quite a bit to prep for sleep, and so there should be enough connection for her and tiredness for her to then go to sleep. You know, like I feel like I've ticked those boxes, so to speak. However, I also recognise that I also have a reliance on her. Like, you know, my life is fairly well, like I don't have a lot of like free time. Like I use my time. Like, so her going to bed means that frees me up to do whatever else I've got planned for my evening. So when she takes an hour instead of 15 minutes, there's part of me that's going, well, this is fucked because I've got like X, Y, Z to do right now and I'm not getting that done. And that's hard to kind of try to be present to her and help her find her sleep, knowing that like she's totally feeling my energy there and my like annoyance, which is then making the resistance stronger for her to sleep.
Do you think there's a part of you that maybe doesn't want to be doing the work?
Doing the work in terms of
the work that you would fill your time with once she was in bed? Is she saving you from actually doing it?
Oh, because I was doing that. I was running through that tonight, actually. I like running through as this was going on were all the benefits to me about this, like the fact that I was there. And definitely this stillness that I get, because I don't really give myself a lot of permission any other time in the day to really be doing like nothing, you know, and just like, you know, because I kind of like flop on the bed near her, or I'll sit and sometimes just sit in like kind of a meditation kind of space within my body. And so in actual fact, is she not giving me an enormous gift that I'm not willing to, if I perhaps created more space to have that stillness in my day elsewhere, would I then not unconsciously have to create that space for stillness with her? You know, I totally recognise that perhaps on some level there's that going on. Because there is also the fact that because with, you know, the more kids you have, I think the more busyness there is, the more stuff there is to organise, so perhaps the less centred one-on-one focused attention there is on each child. Therefore, is there either an unconscious manifestation in me to create that one-on-one time at bedtime with her, or is that her creating that too with me? Because if she's not getting that any other time of the day, and that's the one time that she knows that she gets to have that time just with me, it's not with anybody else, and it's not having to share with her brother, it's not having to share with the housework or the emails or whatever else, is that also part of it? Because I've no doubt that could also be what's playing out. So certainly there's benefits that I'm getting from it, but I'm not sitting in appreciation yet of it.
Could you consciously create those pockets? So like you've just said, pockets of really conscious attention with her and pockets of really conscious attention directed inwardly towards yourself during your day.
I definitely could, and I've been sitting really like looking at where I spend my time, like, so where does my time go in a day, and where are my points of resistance, and where are my control patterns, like, so where are my numbing because we all do something.
Yeah,
we
of course
we
do.
all have.
But
a
I
thing.
wonder that I mean, we talk about this in terms of control patterns with our kids, but it is for ourselves as well. I don't know that we can actually be without control
I don't think we
patterns.
can be. But
And I don't think we can be without numbing. Like, I think there is just as many benefits as there are drawbacks. The issue is always the equilibrium and the balance of it
Yeah.
all, as opposed to a one-sided view either way.
Yeah, I think probably I've been coming at some like points at which I feel like there's almost tipping points with some of them. Like would still be like resistance to holding space for meltdowns, like so kind of almost resistant to the age she's at now, and having to retrain myself to remember, oh, okay, I need to make space for this now.
Yeah, it's a tough age. that
Yeah,
one.
you know, and she's actually at the point where she's having an enormous amount of need for autonomy, independence, you know, and choices, and she's frustrated, and that's playing out. Like she's doing things like she's biting, so and she's, you know, even today was more grisly, and so it's like I know this, and so it's also having me to shift my days to create space for those things, and also create space for intentional play so she could release things through laughter. So I can totally see how the rub that is the tiredness, that is the bedtime stuff, is calling me into the areas where I can create deeper connection both with her one-on-one and also with myself, so that it's not having to come up in the form of this bedtime, nighttime struggle.
Sounds like you've already done all that work.
I think I'm doing it right now. I think I've just like nailed what I need to do right now. So thanks for that.
I also wonder, I mean, this is a conversation we have in our tribe a lot, particularly in aligned parenting, is this, you know, concept of often, you know, like we talked about with, you know, your son clinging tightly in swimming lessons was trying to get you to let go.
Yeah.
Or my daughter not walking and clinging tightly to me was trying to teach me that to let go, that, you know, this whole version of attachment that needs to be physical is in itself and of itself an illusion. And I really have started really immersing myself in, you know, the RIE principles, and they really come at attachment from a very mental space as opposed to a physical space. And whereas attachment is all a classic attachment parenting is all about physical proximity, that you're attached when you are physically close, as opposed to mentally, spiritually close. And I don't think the two are mutually inclusive. You know, I think that there's margins of overlap, but there's a lot of separateness there with those two paradigms as well. And sometimes I wonder if this, you know, pushing us to keep holding more and more and more and more is just getting us to the point where we go, that's it, I can't hold this anymore. And you almost rubber band back, and it brings you into this perhaps more even state of less judgment of one side or the other, of greater understanding and potentially capacity because of that.
With that, because you're not putting the pressure on yourself to try and be all
this one-sided view of I'm only rocking this, I'm only showing up for her when I'm holding everything without boundary of myself, when I'm giving and giving and giving beyond what I have at this point in, like, I've gone beyond my boundary, I've gone beyond my edge, it's crumbled, and I still am expecting myself to run on empty and hold it. I mean, it's not, you know, it's like they keep pushing us, are you know, really, do you think this is the only way to hold space? Do you think this is the only way that I'm safe and connected to you? Really? It's almost kind of that pushing of that edge. And I do think about my youngest, oh, she's not my youngest anymore, you know, clinging on to me so fiercely, you know, not walking, not moving, not crawling, not nothing, didn't move unless I moved her. Like, just that whole thing of attachment, really. You think you want it badly.
I was thinking about that, and I don't know how that didn't drive you batshit crazy.
I did drive me batshit crazy, Bridget. You know that.
I know, but like I actually would have been like I don't know.
I was
like
nearly
punching
looking in a
walls
corner
or something. Like, you know, like
because I had two kids at school, so my whole day was about her, and because I'd come from a loss of pregnancy first, and then her very conscious creation, you know, I didn't feel like I even had the right to my own boundaries. In a way, right? In a way, because I kept expecting myself to show up for her in this one paradigm way that I knew that I knew at that point in time was the definition of attachment, of, you know, she was my redo, I suppose, in a lot of ways. I mean, in a lot of ways, you know, different, I suppose, to my second, who was probably more physically attached than she was, but, you know, just probably more emotional. So she was definitely my aware parented baby from the very beginning and overlapped with. And I just feel like it was, you know, yeah, I hold my child's space 99.9% of the time, and I held myself to that standard. And so I would keep going and going and going and going and breathing until I felt like I completely, you know, I felt blurry. I'd lost who I was because all I was in service to her.
Yeah.
And yet I thought that's what I had to do, or that was the expectation I had on myself, or I was too wounded to consider that I could be anything else, you know? And sometimes I see these edges of, you know, beautiful mums like you, like me, like, you know, our tribe, who our children are doing these very behaviours where we're going, I just have to do more. I just have to do more. And sometimes I think, do you? Or is it that, you know, there's just that stretching of getting you to that point of breaking where you know, turn left instead of right, and then all of a sudden you go, there's other ways to be connected and there's other ways to hold space, and you're not scarred, and our relationship is not completely stuffed for life if I don't do it this way now, here.
And I do recognise that, because it's funny that you should talk about those different ways, and I think you and I probably that landed pretty well when we more deeply understood the principle of quantum entanglement, like the fact that, you know,
you were always connected.
You're always connected.
Yeah.
And I even noticed, like, because I helped my mum at her store. She had a store, like a market, with all of her artwork.
I saw that on Insta. That was so beautiful.
Yeah, our little dance.
Oh yeah, I loved that. But I loved her paintings too. I actually thought they were divine.
She's very, very talented, and she'd asked me to help her. So I had like most of the day just her, and it was like, so I had no kids, and at the market there was all these kids, and so I felt myself missing my children, and like I spent like the whole time looking for the clothes for Sylvia and like bought her clothes, and I could totally feel how much that actually was connection with her, even though I was like physically there, because I was putting intention towards her. I was feeling her presence as I was choosing clothes for her, and I was feeling like that love of like how she'll look in them, and thinking these are all these ways in which we have connection and are constantly fostering that.
Yeah, and I would counter, you know, is that even in essence, I wonder sometimes, a stronger sense of presence and connection for our children than if we were a hollow shell who was physically there.
Yeah, and I really feel that too.
So, you know, I hear this part of, you know, you get to that point of being the hollow shell when you're listening to her at night, and sometimes I go, what edge is this taking you to that's trying to get you to balance your perceptions?
And I also think about, like, so some nights I'm really able to bring my whole self there, and I kind of surprise myself with the amount of resources I can bring. And then other nights I don't have that. I'm like, you know, what's the difference between this and that? And it's a hard one to understand too. Like, you know, how sometimes we seem to have this capacity that we don't know we have, and other times we just have got nothing to give.
Do you think that's what's happened in your day, though?
Certainly something was ever happened to my day, and also perhaps the perspective with which I'm bringing to the situation. Like, if I'm projecting onto it that it shouldn't be happening, or that it's bad, or that it somehow like this needs to change, and I'm not in appreciation for it, or I'm not willing to face the challenge of what's there for me, you know, like that kind of whole resistance thing, versus just kind of going, okay, this is what's happening right now, and this is what I'm facing, so let's just get through it, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Tell me about your tiredness.
I hope this isn't going to be a weird podcast.
It's like you know, like your war wounds, right?
It really is. I'm really tired. I'm really fucking tired. And I haven't had as many sleepless nights as you have. And you know, sometimes I feel myself in my victim who's just wanting to be seen and justified, and I want to go, do you know I haven't slept a full night in nearly 4 months? Like, do you know what that's like?
Yeah, and I'm also aware of that too, because that's another thing, right? Like, so in particularly for our relationship dynamics, how much are we using like the sob story as like a way to be seen?
Yes.
Because you know, that's I don't think that I am, but I'm well aware of when I go into that space. Because
I think I could, I haven't. No, I haven't. Shouldn't say I haven't. No, I have every now and then done that, and sometimes I haven't even said it, but I've thought it. So quantum entanglement, as if he's not feeling it, but you know, we'll be up in the morning, and you know, he's like, oh, do you know what? We had a little tiff about it the other day. I made some crack about it. He was like, oh, I'm tired. I was like, oh, yeah, poor you. something.
Yeah.
Oh no, maybe it wasn't you. Maybe it was
something classically passive aggressive.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it wasn't even that. Maybe it was something else. Someone had said they were tired. And I was like, you should just never, ever, ever tell the mum of a young baby that you're tired.
Yeah.
And he's like, Julie, everyone has a right to be tired.
Gosh, that sounds
and I'm fairly sure I shot him like to death, probably like pummeled him into the ground with my look. But it was one of those moments where I thought, yeah, I'm really wanting you to see that I'm worse off than you.
Yeah.
Which is not reality, right? Because we've all got our own challenges going on, and I'm just not choosing to be conscious enough about them to bring my full self to the table. Because if I was fully connected to him, the fact that I'm doing this and he's doing that would equal each other out, and I wouldn't feel the need to feel justified and wronged or, you know, whatever. So she was waking up. My youngest was waking up once a night. Now she's waking up twice a night, which I'm finding really annoying. Sometimes she'll even wake up, you know, before I've gone to bed, after I've already put her to bed. So I just think she's one of those things where she's growing. You know, I have big kids. I have big babies. They grow fast. You know, in the back of my head, I'm like, that could totally be an excuse. Because, you know, I don't know, but while she's not on food as well as milk, there's part of me that goes, I still feel like a responsibility to show up and feed you just in case, because it's your food, your water, it's
everything.
It's everything, right? Yeah. So unless, you know, if she's waking up sort of around that 3 or 4 hour block, I'm still feeding her because I'm like, I don't know.
Exactly. And you don't know at that age, and there's so many like variables and
so many, and it's hot, right? We're getting into summer, so she's kind of waking up every sort of 4 hours, so I'm feeding her every 4 hours, which I feel like I'm kind of like way back at newborn stage, because she was kind of stretching out to 8 hours, and so I was getting up only once at like 4:30, and it was like fantastic.
Amazing. Yeah. That sounds incredible.
It was so good. And then she would feed and go back to sleep again. So anyway, so now it's back to 4 hours, and yes, she's teething. Yeah, I've got her amber necklace on. But yes, she's got teeth coming through. Yes, she's growing. Could it be that? Could it be emotional stuff? I don't know, right? Because where does one start and one end? And when they're so little, I guess I'm not willing to fuck around with that too much. I guess I'm willing to show up with a breastfeed versus settling / listening to a cry, unless it was kind of if she was waking up every hour or something, then I would definitely be settling. But when she's kind of reaching that 4 hour mark, I go, fair call, you could be thirsty or hungry. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I'm kind of just thinking, you know, I remember most of my kids going haywire around that 5 month mark. So I guess I'm kind of looking at that moment, you know, with a bit of trepidation, kind of going, I remember that, you know, they all went haywire.
I remember like thinking in some of the books they call it like the 4 month sleep progression kind of thing.
Yeah. And I remember it. All of mine did it.
Yeah.
And so I said to Nick the other morning, I just really realised this is the 6 months. I've just got to survive. I've just got to survive this 6 months. And really, in the scheme of things, it's such a blink. In the scheme of their entire lives, it is an absolute blink. And, you know, my son's 11 and was by far the worst sleeper, and I can't remember half, like not even half.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if I could remember 5% of what I used to do with him. Like, it's gone, right?
But yeah, when you're in it, though, like, it can just feel like...
Oh, yeah. It can feel hideous.
Yeah.
But, you know, with that, I suppose... my husband's just moved back into my bed.
Oh, that's exciting.
This week. So I kind of got to the point where I'm like, I'm really, well, how's this, right? Okay, so this is the question I've been sitting with for this week, is I got to the point where I was really tired and feeling really full to the point of kind of teetering on overwhelm, just lots of, when you feel like you're holding lots of balls under the water. And my daughter broke her arm. I literally watched her do it, which is ironic because it's her left arm, which is the same arm that I broke as a child. And we found out it was broken the day after I'd been talking to my mum friends about my broken bone story.
Wow. And it's a relationship to the feminine within itself.
Yeah, I mean, the left side of the body would be, yeah, for sure. Anyway, so I got to the point where I just got to the point of feeling broken, right? So kind of sore and vulnerable and weepy that I was like, I need my husband back in my bed with me. Like, I actually need you now. Like, not that you have to do anything, but, that whole... I guess that wall had just crumbled because I had, in a way, built up a wall of because he hadn't been. I'd done the whole, baby thing completely on my own for 3 months.
Yeah,
completely on my own.
Yeah,
I hadn't seen him at night at all, and there was part of me that was wearing that as a badge of honor, and there was part of me that was like, "Fuck you."
When there was a tiny part that was hurt, but that you decided to look at.
Yeah, right? And the kind of the world and the tiredness got bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where I couldn't hold it anymore. And so it crumbled. And I let it crumble. And I let him see my vulnerability. And this kind of doe-eyed little boy looked back at me, in my husband's body, and said, "Oh, am I allowed back in?" And I was like, it is your bed. And then I thought, wow, that's so interesting, isn't it? Because he's thinking he's in service to me by being out of the room because of the snoring. And I'm reading it a completely different way through my, wounding. And I did think, had she not been waking up so much and had all these other things not happen and I'd felt like it was too much for me to handle on my own, he'd still be in a separate room because I wouldn't have gone there.
It's interesting. How much is us not coping serving our intimate relationships? Like, how much is us getting to the point of overwhelm and kind of,
unconsciously seeking what we can't consciously ask for.
Because I had a similar, we'll jump back to your story, but I had a similar thing because I've had these events and it's been like full on intense to be holding like the space for these events. And while I was waiting for my husband to get home yesterday to prepare for us to drive together over to Geelong, I was just like shattered. Like, I felt sick, I felt nauseous, I felt exhausted. And like, I laid on my bed for like 5 minutes and nearly fell asleep. Like, so I was shattered. And then he came home and I still was feeling awful. And he came in through the door in just so capable and so in his masculine, ready for action and ready for kind of sweeping me up and getting us going. And at the same time, really kind of saying, "How are you going? Like, you all right?" And I just kind of was honest and said, "No, I'm not. Like, I'm feeling really awful right now." And he listened and just his capability and like, confidence in me to keep going and the ability to listen at the same time was just enough for me to feel well again. And so how much was I...
How much did that illness serve you to reach vulnerability?
Yeah. How much was that a pathway that I needed, that I wasn't consciously aware that I needed to create in order to get the connection with him to then, feel that richness in my relationship.
I totally think that. I totally think that, particularly if you've got this kind of, feminist, I can do it all, or this is my role and responsibility, not I shouldn't be burdening you with it, or, whatever belief system you have going on.
Exactly.
I totally think that it serves. So I've been sitting with that, is how is this serving me? But anyway, I don't know, that was just an epiphany I was kind of sitting with
that sounds beautiful
today.
I mean, talk about like paving the way for him to come back into that fold that you had really had a lot of challenge around.
And I thought maybe I'd even be annoyed at him being in the bed sleeping while I'm up feeding, but I really wasn't. Like, the last few nights I've just been like, oh. You're there.
Yeah, hi.
That's nice. And that then has actually kind of awakened a flood of softness in me. And kind of that river flowing of more sexual intimacy again that had to a large extent kind of dried up because I was so shut off and so much energy was going into just maintaining it all.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I always think that the answer to overwhelm is just to do less. And so I spend a lot of time doing less. So, and look, this is the other thing is, you know, I hear you really talking about how it's hard to make time for quiet time and to do nothing. And I so get that because that's me. Like every bit of every moment that I have to myself is crammed with a to-do list of some sort. And yet this week with, you know, the insane week that I've had, I'm so fucking tired that today I had that space and I could not peel my ass off of the couch to go and do any of it.
Yeah.
And my house was trashed and I had no dinner prepared for that night and I had a list of shit I needed to get done for, you know, all my volunteer roles and, you know, I wanted to crack into some work with you, Bridge, and I just sat there like, oh, I just can't. And my husband and Ryan, I'm like, I'm sitting here feeling so guilty because I actually, like, just can't do it. I just don't want to do anything. And he's like, so don't. And I was like, oh, no, I can't.
Oh, I can't do that.
I can't. And he's like, just don't. Who cares? And I was like, I don't know. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
What is a whole day? If I'm even saying 6 months is a blink or a year is a blink in my child's life, what is one day?
Just it starts to reveal how much everything's really a story, right?
Totally a story. So I did. I sat down and I chucked some Netflix on, and when my baby woke up, woke up, I like had this lovely, you know, baby gazing, and she'd, you know, giggle away and I'd lie down with her, did some tummy exercises, watched some, like, just
cute.
I did nothing, and then I spoke to my husband at the end of the day. He goes, how's your day? And I went, did nothing, just baby gazed all day. Really. I was like, oh, well, that sounds nice. Yeah, I guess it's probably really good for her. I was like, yeah, it probably really was. And yet I want to make it mean all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And were I not so tired, no way would I be, in essence, forcing myself to, or prioritising myself to slow down, because I actually had to walk out of somewhere I was supposed to be today in order to be home to do nothing. I had to, in inverted commas, let a number of people down to
And that would have been hard for you because that's a real block for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it was really hard. It was really hard. And I wasn't 100% honest. I left going, yeah, I'll just go home and do some work and I'll come back.
Bullshit.
Yeah, well, not only did I not do any work, I didn't go back.
Yeah. You wagger.
I know.
How you wagged.
It totally is. I wonder if that's like a flashback to then.
I don't know.
Oh, it probably is. An inner child thing. Anyway, I just think, I think the answer is always to do less and to question, as you and I have just probably highlighted, to question the benefits of what this is bringing you, and the benefits greater than you as well.
Yeah, and I think where I perceive this as taking away from something. Well, what's it actually giving to? Like, what other area of life am I servicing if I think I'm taking away from this area?
Yeah,
because we know it's always in conservation. There's always something. There's not a. You can't have one without the other. They're always benefit and drawback constantly.
Exactly. And then I think the break often serves, that waterfall that has you leaning into softness could be the very essence you were wanting to create in your relationship. But you haven't consciously been able to bring yourself to the point of softness. So you create a situation that might first involve pain and tears before you reach softness, but there's your softness.
But that's where you get it. Yeah.
And I just think that was me. I was running kind of survival mode, but, you know, running very much on my masculine and not allowing my feminine, because what would happen if I did open up that vulnerability or really say, this is too hard? What would happen? And, you know, that's what I got called into this week, and softness. So that's really nice in my relationship and within my own body. And, you know, I mean, last week's podcast, it's this week's podcast actually on the postnatal body, was so interesting. I recorded it last week, and then I was this week thinking, because last week I was thinking I really need to start doing some, consciously really manifesting some quality body connection. And, you know, this is where I find myself this week, but not that I consciously got there. Yeah. But didn't my world create what I needed to get there? Like, how clever.
That's so interesting.
It's so interesting, isn't it? So, you know, tired is hard, but, you know, do what you love and continue to do what you love. And I think you can find inspiration and joy there still.
I think I've kind of been running for a while this kind of statement, I'm tired but inspired. And I think if you can find that sort of sweet spot, then it makes the tiredness kind of something that you can kind of integrate. Like you just sort of find your way with it. And you find your pockets to do what you've done today, right? And find the softness and surrender, and you find the ways to let go of the things that perhaps, you know, the demands of everybody else of you, and say no, like, this stillness is important. You know?
Yeah.
It is.
And guilt is a lopsided perception.
Yeah.
There's more drawbacks than benefits.
Yeah. So,
and of course there isn't.
And exactly. And, you know, what's the voice of guilt got for you, and why? And who is it about? Because often it's not really about you. It's some kind of ingrained belief that you've internalized, and you're not seeing the full picture.
Who have you picked it up from? Who told you that? Who treated you like that? Yeah, totally. So anyway, if you're so fucking tired, we are sending you huge, you know, hugs and love. And if you were here in person, I'd hand you a coffee, Bridget would hand you a tea.
Or a chai.
A chai. And we'd still sit down together.
Yes.
And just go, this is really hard, and go the fuck to sleep.
Yeah.
And then I'm willing to get conscious and see what it's calling me to awaken in my day. And I hope that's what this does for you.
Yes.
So
thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening, yeah. And remember, you've got to nourish the woman, nourish the mother, to rock the family. I will get it right. One of these days.
Now to connect with you, Jules.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's thepleasurenutritionist.com. And you, Bridget?
It's suburbansandcastles.com. And us, nourishingthemother.com.au. And if you love the podcast and it adds something to your life, we would so love a rating on iTunes or on Facebook. It helps other people find us and gives us a bit of a glide in our stride and a dip in our hip, which is always
Ooh,
nice.
I like that. And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/The Wellness Couch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.